Hi, this is James from Spectrasonics, and we're here at Synthplex in Burbank, and we are showing Omnisphere 2.6, which was just released a couple of days ago. So we're really excited. As you can see, we brought just a few synths, and what we're going to do is talk a little bit about, now that Omnisphere 2.6 is out, a little bit about what's in Omnisphere 2.6. We are showing the hardware synth integration, which is why we have all of this beautiful hardware here. But everything that you're hearing is Omnisphere, right? None of what you're hearing is the actual hardware. The hardware is being used to control Omnisphere. So with hardware synth integration, the really cool thing about it is that when you have a synth that is supported, you get to use that synth, and if you're very familiar with that synth, something, let's say, like this Juno 106, which is really inviting to start playing around with the sliders and making sounds, it just works. You selected an Omnisphere, and it just works. So I'm going to take the Juno 106, which is one of the first synths that had MIDI, and not many people know, but the Juno 106, not only did it have MIDI for note on, note off, but actually all of the sliders on the synth send out MIDI system exclusive information. We read that information and it allows you to control Omnisphere. So if I want to change the envelope, it appears on the screen. If I want to change the filter, obviously, everything is just there and it's all set up and it all works. So what I'm going to do is I want to show you the new Arpeggiator as well. So with the new Arpeggiator, we've got a number of new presets that you can use as a good starting point for your own Arpeggiator patterns. You can modify them, edit them to your liking. And I want to talk a little bit about what's new about the Arpeggiator. As you can see here, if you're familiar with the Arpeggiator and Omnisphere, things look a little different, right? We've got these step modifiers here, which are doing something to each step in the Arpeggiator pattern. This particular pattern that I've called up, we have step modifiers that are doing something that is unique for any arpeggiator that's out there. This is a sort of a first, and that is the ability to change chord inversions and chord voicings per step. So I can set up some really interesting changes in the chord. So even if you're not really the best of keyboard players, kind of like myself, I can play some really basic triads and things like that, and I'm getting some really interesting chord variations. So let's let you hear how that sounds. I'm going to turn the Arpeggiator on. So I'm not really doing a whole lot, but there's a lot going on with that. Let's go to something else. I'm going to do a sort of a bass sound now, and let's get an Arpeggiator preset that is a bass line. I'm going to select this Illegal Rave preset. Now, as you can see here, there's some other stuff going on, right? So these step modifiers that we've got here are using the ability to transpose steps and also add slides per step. So we can do some really interesting slide patterns, and I can even change the length of the slide per step. So I can get some sort of like 303 style sort of acid type patterns. We also have these other step dividers, which allow us to take that particular step that's there and split it up or ratchet or repeat it a number of times. So on this particular step, it's going to repeat 4 times before it moves on to the next step. We can do 2, 3, 4, and we can even do rise or fall in velocity. So it gives us sort of a crescendo on the velocity amount. So let's hear what that sounds like. And I'm going to change the sound. So we're hearing that sort of step divider that's there. And I'm going to change one of these to be, instead of 3, let's make it 3. And let's make this one maybe a step divider with a rise on 3. All right, so that's a little bit of what's going on with the Arpeggiator. Now, something else that we've added to the Arpeggiator that's really cool is that when you're using an Arpeggiator and you're playing with it, it's really fun. But the hardest thing about using an Arpeggiator maybe in your own music is that a lot of times what you're hearing when you're playing it, when you then go to use that in your track, it can be really difficult to capture that same emotion, that same vibe, the same exact thing that's happening. So a lot of times you're left with the option of maybe recording it as audio, but then you're married to the sound. And you can't really edit it unless now it's an audio part. So we've got this new feature now called Capture. And what Capture allows us to do is specify a certain amount of bars that it's going to record or capture So if I set it to 1 bar, it's now waiting for notes. So if I go in here and start playing some notes, it's now recorded that, and now that pattern that I've recorded exists as a MIDI clip, which I can then drag and drop to a DAW onto my desktop, and then I can edit it for further use. That will include everything that's part of the arpeggiator that we heard. Any chord data, any chord voicing changes, any of the slides that are there, any of the step divider, all of that exists as MIDI information, which can be edited. So it's really cool and very useful for coming up with new ideas. The arpeggiator itself has a number of new functions in the arpeggiator mode. So we've got things like join, spread and join, stairs up, down, and so on. All of these are actually described in detail in the reference guide. So if you look at our reference guide online, you'll see sort of a good representation of exactly what's going on in the play notes. You also have the ability to go into the arpeggiator itself and change the way things are playing. So let's say I had this pattern and I kind of want to shuffle it up, mix it up a bit. By doing that, I now get a completely different version of that pattern. It's a really easy way to go in and start modifying and creating your own patterns using some of the presets there as a good basis to start from. All right, so let's move on to a little bit of what else we've got going on here. So some of the other synths that we're supporting in hardware synth integration, at this point in version 2.6, we now have over 65 synthesizers that are supported with hardware synth integration. And again, everything you're hearing is Omnisphere. You're not hearing the synth. You're hearing the synth controlling Omnisphere using our hardware synth integration feature. We've got just a few of them here. I think we have about 37 synths here today. But one of the most iconic synths that's been created, something that Eric Persing himself was involved with, was responsible for, is the Roland D50. So using the Roland PG-1000 programmer, with the D50 and Omnisphere, you can actually use this to control and modify patches using the PG-1000. To use the D50 with Omnisphere, what we've done is actually captured the flavor, the essence of the D50. There are some samples that are right from the D50 preset. So some classic stuff like, for example, the soundtrack patch. And we've got a sort of an updated version of that. All right, so let's move along now to another synth that I think we all have about 5 of these in our collection or so, like maybe 6. The Andromeda A6, obviously I'm joking. This is a really rare synth, beautiful synth, very powerful. When you're using it with hardware synth integration with Omnisphere, all of these parameters, everything that the synth is capable of as far as the parameter modifications, all work on Omnisphere. So you get some really expressive control of creating sounds. So we're going to play this, and we're going to select something here. Let's say like this classic Mogi. It's a beautiful synth, lots of controls all laid out, very easy to access. And unfortunately super rare, hard to find in this great of a shape. So if you have one, this is a great addition to be able to use this to control Omnisphere. You still get the sounds, yeah. So the great thing about hardware synth integration is that even if you don't have any of these synthesizers, all the new patches that come with Omnisphere 2.6, you can use those. You get all of these great sounds. There's over 600 sounds that are included in 2.6, so that adds on to the total we've already got, which is a lot. And that's all new waveforms that are added as well to kind of capture the flavor of that synth. Moving on, we've got the MKS80, the Super Jupiter. So the Super Jupiter here, using the MPG80, this is another controller. Again, this one's a little rare to find these days, but again, we have this working with Omnisphere as a control source. So we can use this with hardware synth integration to modify our Omnisphere patches. So everything works, it's great, it's a lot of fun, very flexible. But my favorite, probably of all the synths that we have here, is the one that I sort of first cut my teeth on in modular synthesis, which is the Korg MS-20. Now this isn't an MS-20. An MS-20 is an analog synth. But Korg, some time ago, made a piece of software called the Legacy Collection. And with that software, you got this controller, which is called the MS-20 IC. This is USB. So if you look at the synth itself, you can see there's just a USB jack on it. There's no audio coming out of the synth. It is strictly a USB controller. The cool thing about this particular controller, or this profile that we've created, is that while it's obviously really cute and you can get some really interesting sort of MS-20 type tones, what really makes this unique is that you've got these patch points on the front. So, with these patch points that we've got here, we have the ability now to create modulation routings in Omnisphere and patch Omnisphere using patch cables. So I'm going to take this sample and hold. I'm going to patch the output of the sample and hold, and let's just go into, let's say, the pitch. And when I do that, you can see immediately on the matrix, it creates a patch routing where this sample and hold is now routed to the pitch course. What's really fun is that not only can I route this output into pitch, but I can mult. So I can take a cable like this cable here, which has the ability to sort of split the output, and I'll take that sample and hold output, I'll take it back into pitch, so we've got that. But I'm also going to take it and patch the output into, let's say, the low-pass filter. So now we've got both of those being controlled. And when you look at the screen, you can see the patch point gets created. It creates a new mod matrix routing and destination. So super fun. We got the ability to now patch Omnisphere using semi-modular synthesizer in the Korg MS-20 IC. These are, somewhat rare to find. They're probably going to become more rare now that we've done this. So get one while you can. But a lot of fun. And that's just a little bit of what's going on with Omnisphere 2.6. And again, you take a walk around, you can see some of the many synths that are supported in hardware synth integration. Thank you.